It's 2018 and people wake up early to go to work. The city is full as always. It was another quiet, inordinary day until some screams and roars are heard by the passengers inside a bus. They look around and don't see anything. Someone assumes a movie is being shot nearby, and that's just sound effects. Unfortunately, on that day, the world was attacked by unknown monsters. The survivors witnessed the real hell. The passengers did not know what was happening, and in an attempt to save themselves, they called the police. But in a matter of seconds, their heads flew. Those goblins had agile attacks. In a few minutes, the passengers of the bus were decimated. Not even the children were spared. On that day, Seoul lost 80% of the population. The protagonist was on that bus and was the only one to get out alive. He thought he was special, but years later, he discovered that he was a talentless player. 10 years pass. The scene changes to Jongno-gu in Seoul. Classes end and students go to eat at a street restaurant. A guy asked his friend how he did in the exam. Without thinking twice, the friend replied that it was too difficult, and he is sure he got all the questions wrong. He says he will give up studying and working in a trade or something. Our main character, named Kim Hyuk-shin, sits at the table to have his meal. Currently, he is 30 years old and studying to take a public exam. The boy is so persistent that he has already lost 7 years repeating this exam. Every time his result was that he is an ordinary person with no talent as a player. 10 years ago, a portal was mysteriously opened in Seoul and all kinds of things came out of there, eliminating anyone who appeared in front. A few months later, at part of that, the survivors awakened something called player talent. The protagonist dreamed of being a player for many years and gave up after realizing that he had no talent for it. Now he is striving to pass this civil servant contest. Some people at the front table comment on the player Tyone. Someone says that guy fights very well. Another person replies that it would be better for him if he had talent too. The guy in the blue blouse replies that there is no way to have this guy's life. Normal people need to work hard to become public servants if they want to make some money. At that moment, the group notices the protagonist and comments on him. Someone says that in the past, Kim recorded 67 talent boards in the player aptitude test. The test measures up to 67 and he maxed it out, but it's called a fallen genius because all 67 talents were closed. Someone says that this is crazy and that the protagonist had the opportunity to change his life. It seems that talents close after turning 20. Currently, Kim is 30 years old. It can be said that he has no future anymore. The protagonist listens to people talk about him and tells himself that he knows it. He doesn't even have hopes of becoming a player anymore. 7 years ago, Kim went to the Korean Players Association and took an aptitude test. It is a government test that seeks the presence of talents. It shows how many active and inactive talent boards the person has. The number of active talent boards that the protagonist had was only 1. Kim thought it was a much worse result than hearing that he had no talent. To complete his disappointment, who came to report his grade was the head of HR of the Players Association. He wished the protagonist luck and studied for civil service. After the results, Kim hoped to become a hunter civil servant, but it was failure after failure. The life of a talented player and the life of an ordinary person. It was like the difference between heaven and hell. That's why being a player was all the protagonist wanted. A little later, Kim returns home and goes back to school, this time watching a video on YouTube explaining the radical change that happened on April 27, 2018. The horrific incidents that happened during the cataclysm started the tutorial called Primordial Fog, resulted in 145,000 corpses of 150,000 people in Seoul. The man in the video adds that he was also lost in the primordial mist. This guy is Ma Sang-hyeon. He did a lot during the cataclysm 10 years ago and is now a world-famous player. Sang always said in his videos that effort was more important than talent. Kim thinks this is silly because he tried hard and had no results. This thought always makes the guy angry. He says that he would have already woken up as a player if he really had talent, so he would get rich and show off all his fortune. From time to time, the protagonist catches himself thinking that it is his fault. The fact that his mother passed away due to the disease, and the fact that his sister started working in a semiconductor factory and years later passed away with a terminal illness, all this makes the protagonist bad. Kim does not get over that he did not give them a dignified life. He did not pass the talent aptitude test and also failed 3 times in the civil servant competition. Listening to that conversation in the cafeteria about him was very difficult and made the protagonist wonder where he went wrong. He promised his sister and mother that he would make an effort. Tomorrow, Kim will take the exam again and try to pass this time. He doesn't even know what to do if it goes wrong again. The protagonist cried all night while the hours on the clock passed. A blue light burst from the room. The next day arrives and the clock strikes 5:50 a.m. Today is the day of the evaluation, and the protagonist feels that he has not slept at all. His body seems more tired than usual. He decides to take a shower to go to the course as early as possible. A few minutes later, the protagonist waits for the bus with other passersby. The day seems ordinary. The bus schedules are displayed on the dashboard. For some reason, Kim feels that there is something strange. Although he doesn't see anything different, he still has the feeling that something has changed. At that moment, bus 702 arrives and he gets on. Some people on the bus are talking on the phone. Kim decides to study before arriving for the evaluation. Passersby talk about the group Pink Velvet that will release a song today. The protagonist remembers this old group. But it's been a while since he listens to anything because as far as he knows, the singers have retired. At that moment, the protagonist takes the notes he made about the beginning of the cataclysm and starts studying. A few minutes later, the passengers start asking what that dark fog is. Kim is startled hearing this. A horrible smell invades the bus and he is forced to cover his face. That fog brought bad memories. Suddenly, an emergency SIMS arrives on his phone. The emergency message was about a thick fog that appeared in John No God today. On April 27th, 2018, the message asked people to look for a safe place until everything calms down. The date of the message catches the protagonist's attention, and he screams that it is impossible. April 27th, 2018 was 10 years ago. Kim soon realizes that he went back in time, exactly to the beginning of the cataclysm 10 years ago. This means that the inhabitants of Jongno are about to disappear. The protagonist tries to look at the city but sees nothing because of the thick fog. In addition, the unpleasant smell is still in the air. Kim was on the bus heading towards Jongno-gu, where 145,000 of the 150,000 people must be exterminated. The protagonist feels that he has been given a new chance. He already knows everything that is going to happen. At that moment, his thoughts are interrupted by an interface that appears in front of him. The message asks the player to wait, because the tutorial will start. A countdown begins. 10 years ago, the first tutorial began in Jongno. Dungeons were created and monsters invaded the city. The population had no chance to resist during the week of the cataclysm, which was later called the tutorial. But out of 100,000 people were fatally hit in Jongno alone. The chance of survival was only 3%. It was marked as the worst day in human history. After that, the population had a victory. Existences known as players appeared. The players were those who subdued the monsters. The dungeons in Jongno were cleared and players recorded what the combat was like inside them. The footage was used to create virtual dungeons, so people could train without getting really hurt. Thanks to this, the world slowly recovered from the cataclysm. The protagonist has already experienced it once, so he memorized all the attacks and completed the virtual dungeons hundreds of times. It's hard to find someone who knew more about this incident than he did. Kim focused on memorizing everything even though he knew he couldn't become a player. At that moment, the protagonist feels the instructions of the strange interface that appeared. These notifications also came up in the past. But Kim has never seen it in person. He has only heard a few players comment on the interface. Suddenly, the driver tries to stop the bus and everyone holds on to the seat so it doesn't fall. People start to get scared and Kim was no different. He tries to convince himself that everything is fine. Because he has been through this in the past, the protagonist notices that so far no one is talking about the system notifications. This means that he is the only player on the bus. The notifications keep coming, and he is informed that the nameless observer is keeping an eye on him. Kim wonders if the nameless observer is a guardian or something. The new message says that the observer wants to grant a bonus from the tutorial. Kim soon remembers that she heard that this bonus was given to a famous ranker from the past. Guardians are beings who despise players. A player's fate is decided by the bonuses and favors that a guardian grants them. Guardians exist in a dimension above players, and that's why they use nicknames when they contact with the players. The guardian who talks at that moment with the protagonist takes on the name of Observer. For some reason, Kim feels calm, as if he is watching from a third-person perspective. At that moment, the notification warns that the tutorial mission will start in 10 seconds and a countdown begins. The driver warns the passengers that the fog is too intense and he cannot continue driving. The passengers are about to leave the bus and complain that they are going to be late for work. The protagonist yells for everyone to lie down on the ground and be silent if they want to survive. Kim again receives a message about the observer being interested in him. At that moment, the passengers notice something on the bus. A portal appears in front of everyone, and the notification warns that the intermediate administrator has appeared. A girl with white hair and wings comes out of the portal. The administrator introduced herself as Senya and said that, from now on they are in the tutorial. The first mission of the tutorial is to survive for 7 days without leaving the tutorial area. The next difficulty will be based on the number of survivors. This is information that the protagonist needed to finally understand that he has gone back in time and is at the beginning of the cataclysm. The passengers ask Senya if she's shooting a movie or something. The administrator says that they need to join forces to survive the tutorial mission. The guys think it's a joke, but when a corpse is thrown on the bus, they realize that something is wrong and try to call the police. Kim realizes that those things are using the same strategy as before. cause fear by throwing human corpses around. The goblins are the first monsters to arrive and the notification warns of the first attack. Goblin troops arrive in the district and try to storm the bus. The passengers scream in horror. Someone tells them not to open the window. The protagonist knows that taking shelter is the best option. In the past, humanity has figured out how to survive an attack by goblins. First of all, you should never face the goblins head-on. Those things are stronger than humans. Kim knows that they will soon break through the bus with their attacks. At that moment, the door is broken. The protagonist yells for the passengers to lie on the ground in silence. People didn't understand how they could survive if they stayed put. Kim realizes that the passengers are too shaken to follow his orders. The system notifies him that the status window and inventory have been activated. The status window appears in front of him, displaying his level 1 and his stats. The protagonist is surprised because they are all above 10. He remembers that in the past life there was a player named King of the Fist whose stats during the tutorial were no more than 9. Kim is happy as the passengers get desperate. The goblins invade the bus. The first passenger is attacked with a sword. In a few minutes, several corpses are left on the ground. The goblin notices Kim lying down and checks if he is alive. The protagonist used the bonus he received from the guardian called the Observer's Calm Eye. Fortunately, it took effect, and the goblins thought he was a corpse. According to Kim's memories, there are some safety zones in the tutorial field. One of them is inside bus 0914. To fulfill the safety condition, you just need to stand still. He managed to stay calm thanks to the bonus he received from the guardian. In the past, the first goblin attack lasted about 10 minutes. The protagonist waits for the time to run out to get to a safe zone. Suddenly, the goblin checks again if he is alive. Kim is pulled by the hair, and the monster's mouth passes close to his face. He tells himself that everything will be over soon and just don't move. Suddenly, a new notification arrives, saying that the brave Lion King wants to give him a chance. Kim is surprised to get help from another guardian. This time he won an elixir of high strength. The system says that the Lion King wants to see his courage. That high strength elixir increases strength by 6 temporarily for 10 minutes. As far as he remembers, when a player's level goes up, he gains 2 bonus stats. The protagonist thinks that the guardian's wish is for him to use the elixir against these cursed goblins. But Kim is not crazy to risk his life now. The mission is already at the end, so he decides to continue pretending to be a corpse. Suddenly a light surrounds the protagonist, and the system notifies that the Lion King has requested an exchange with the intermediary administrator. Kim appears in an unknown place and Senya says that she will change the field of the tutorial according to the Lion King's suggestion. Kim grits his teeth hearing this. The brave Lion King is one of the best known among the Guardians and is interested in the reckless courage, the spirit of defiance, and the useless passion of the players. That Guardian is happy to see the humans suffering. The protagonist assumes that that garbage wants to banish the safe zone. He was right. Senya warns that according to the request of the brave Lion King, the conditional safety zone will be abolished in 30 seconds. Kim approaches her and says that this is wrong. If a guardian changes the scenario by force, he must give at least 1 reward to the affected player. The protagonist does not accept this decision with folded arms just because he won an elixir. Senya is silent while Kim says that she can't accept anything when her life is at risk. Moreover, she shouldn't break the commandment. The nameless observer expressed surprise at her action through the system, while the brave Lion King was silent. Senya asks, surprised if he spoke of the commandment. The administrator's surprise is understandable. In the past, humans only discovered the laws and commandments 7 years after the tutorial. Senya asks how he knows the commandment, and Kim replies that a player doesn't have to explain how he plays. She is silent, and he says that he has already lost 10 seconds here. This means that now she also owes him a reward. Senya replies that he is right. The position of intermediate administrator allows her to also give some rewards. So the woman decides to increase the duration of the safe zone by 10 seconds after the end of the conversation. In addition, the protagonist also receives a reward for changing the scenario. Kim wins a high-quality ointment for sharpening blades and a rusty iron sword. The cut of the sword is not so lethal. The protagonist expected more from the reward, but he has no alternative but to use it. At that moment, Senya sends him back to the bus. The time of the goblins is over, so they run away. Kim breathes a sigh of relief because thanks to the conversation he did not have to use the safe zone or fight. The brave Lion King uses the system to say that he is disappointed, but the protagonist does not care and mentally says that this guardian is stupid. He gets up to leave the bus and feels like vomiting when he sees the bodies on the ground. It is a tutorial week. This means that he will still see many things, and if he wants to survive these 7 days, he needs to prepare. The basic now is to get water and food. He has memorized everything and knows that the convenience store about 300 meters away is his main priority. Kim has studied this place for 3 years and needs to get there as soon as possible. He runs towards his goal. Meanwhile, some screams ask for help. The protagonist realizes that there are still survivors, but you can't see it because of the smoke. Anyway, he runs trying to dodge the cars on the street. Kim knows he can't be late arriving at the convenience. For some reason, he still feels calm and assumes it's thanks to the observer's bonus. The guy takes a break to rest when he suddenly bumps into a hand thinking it was a corpse, but the girl under the car asks for help. At that moment, a goblin approaches her. Kim is incredulous because the time of the attack is over, and there shouldn't be any goblin around here. That goblin brings the dagger to the girl's leg as she screams for help. The girl starts calling for her mother. At first, the protagonist was so scared that he didn't realize that the goblin wasn't managing to hurt the girl's leg. The screams are because she's scared. The goblin just can't hurt her. Kim assumes that the girl also received a bonus or has a player's talent. Senya says she's a baby goblin. Even so, a level 1 should find it difficult to defeat this monster. The protagonist is surprised by the appearance of the administrator and says that if she is right, it means that this girl has a lot of talent as a tanker. Not even the player Yu Hyun, who was the greatest tanker in the past, would have been able to do it at level 1. At the moment, she is still at level 1 and may not resist if other goblins arrive. Kim decides to help and calls the inventory. He takes the rusty sword and remembers that Senya said that it would be difficult for a level 1 to defeat a baby goblin. The protagonist had some experiences on the battlefield and knows that with his level you can't fight a goblin head-on, but no one said that it was not possible to attack from behind. At that moment, Kim takes the goblin by surprise with a sneak attack on the neck. The girl looks scared. The system notifies the defeat of the monster. Kim looks at the girl and tells her to get up. He starts walking and says that she will stay behind if she does not follow his steps. The girl gets up and follows him. A few minutes later, the two arrive at the convenience store. Kim locks the door and says that regardless of what happens, she should not open it. The girl replies that she understands. The protagonist realizes that she is still consumed by fear. He understands that he is only calm because apparently he is the only one who has the memories of the past. At that moment, the system says that the second wave of the goblin attack will begin soon. Safe zones are being created. The protagonist asks the girl if she can see this interface and she confirms. He then asks her to read what is written. The girl obeys and says that safe zones are being established in schools, convenience stores, and hospitals. Kim has just confirmed that she has the talent of a player. Usually convenience stores are announced as safe zones in the second wave, but players with talent can see that hospitals are also safe zones. The protagonist can also see a new notification presents a extra list of safe zones and says that the second wave of attack has begun. Kim repeats that the girl should not open the door no matter what. If she thinks it is better, she can even sit far away and turn her face. The attack starts outside the safe zones. People enter into hand-to-hand combat with the goblins. Several corpses are already scattered on the ground. Some survivors end up finding the convenience store and try to enter the safe zone. They shout for the protagonist to open the door. Kim holds the sword while the girl stands with her back to the door. For a while, the protagonist didn't feel anything looking at those corpses on the way to the convenience store. But now he feels guilty for denying help to the survivors. Suddenly, those guys are caught by goblins. Kim knows that there is no way to survive for so long outside the safe zone. If he allowed those people to enter, the safe area would disappear. So the only option is to watch the attack. These are the rules created by the Guardians who watch humanity. They see it as a game. Kim is capable of anything to survive. 6 hours later, the second wave ends. Kim and the girl are sitting together inside the store. She realizes that she hasn't introduced herself yet and says that her name is Kang Sunhwa. She is 14 years old and was happy to meet him. The protagonist replies that he didn't help her for no reason. She can even be used as bait, so she shouldn't be too happy. Kang asks if she did something wrong and starts shaking. Kim realizes that he exaggerated and explains that he just wanted to say that he can't guarantee her safety. He won't abandon her until his own life is at risk. After saying that, the protagonist tells her to sleep because they're going to move tomorrow. Kang asks where they are going. Kim used the extra list of safe areas and discovered the parking lot of Tower D on the second floor. He warns that tomorrow the destination is Gwanghwamun. When giving this news, the protagonist realizes that Kang cannot see the extra list of safe zone. The only thing he knows from his past life about Tower D is that the main point of attack of this tutorial is there. The next day, Kim puts water and food in her backpack. They leave the convenience store and Kang looks scared by the bodies on the street. The protagonist thinks that this fear is normal for someone her age. The city has been all destroyed. So far, they haven't found any survivors. Kim calls Kang and says that if she sees something like a jelly crawling around, it's to warn him. The girl points to a place and asks if he's talking about that thing. The protagonist takes the sword. He didn't expect to find a slime so soon. These monsters are neutral that don't have the level displayed. Usually even a child can hunt. With a swing of the sword, the protagonist eliminates the monster. He feels a familiar sensation when holding this blade. Suddenly, Kang interrupts his thoughts and asks why the slime disappeared. The protagonist replies that it is because these monsters will be the weakest. They will continue to appear until they are defeated. Kang says he will be attentive. Kim turns his attention to the sword and wonders how he managed to handle it so well. The only time he picked up a sword was during the virtual dungeons. He feels he had a quick adaptation. A few minutes later, Kang warns about the slime. Kim defeats the monster with ease. This is already the 5th that appears. The protagonist realizes that the girl is better than him at detecting these enemies. The system announces that he has risen to level 2 and gained 2 bonus stats. Kang affectionately calls the protagonist by the nickname Appa and asks why his body's shown. Kim replies that it was because he leveled up. Whenever he gets stronger it happens, Kang is surprised and says that he will strive to level up too. That is the first time the protagonist has leveled up, since in the past life he was just an ordinary person. Now Kim is determined to level up as soon as possible. After eliminating some slimes, his level increases again and he receives another random bonus stat. The protagonist remembers that in the past the player Yuyan was known as the finisher of the tutorial. He left a record that talked about the bonus stats, but even he found it difficult to get them. It's strange because the protagonist has already gotten this bonus twice and is still at level 3. In the past he failed the aptitude test, and until recently he thought he had no talent at all. Now the protagonist comes to the conclusion that in the beginning he will be an advanced player, but then he will not have any more advancement and will go back to being an ordinary person. Kim has already accepted this reality, but he thinks it is not so bad because he has already managed to get the attention of the Guardians. The protagonist's only goal in this new life is to get 1,000,000,000. 3 years from now the potion to cure diseases will be released for this price. He will be able to save his mother and sister if he can buy it. So Kim tells himself that he will survive and make this money. On the way to Tower D, Kim kept destroying the slimes. He gains more bonus stats and unlocks a very important aspect of the system. The protagonist can now use the group option. He sends an invitation to Kang and she accepts even without knowing what it is. Kim thinks he can share his experience and make her level up too. The system warns that the observer has his eye on him. Kang looks at the protagonist and warns that he will work hard so that he does not abandon her. Kim feels a little sorry but warns that she must prove it with actions instead of words. The protagonist seems calm on the outside, but inside he tries to convince himself that he can defeat the thing that is on the first floor of Tower D. His fear is not being able to protect Kang during the fight. The two arrive at the building. Kang notices a fox and asks if it's a monster too. The protagonist says yes. It's a passive monster that gathers with others of his kind to retaliate against the attackers. The girl is concentrating reading the information on the interface. When she is suddenly attacked, the foxes jump on her in a group and start biting. Fortunately, the girl doesn't take much damage. Kim cuts the enemies in the neck. Kang looks impressed. The protagonist levels up and asks if everything is okay. Sinya asks what his level is. Kim realized that the administrator was following him all this time. She probably accompanies the players during the tutorial. He replies that he is at level 8. Sinya is surprised and checks the system. The nameless observer expressed surprise as well. Other guardians are also keeping an eye on the protagonist. Not even Kim understands how he got it. He calls the status window and sees that the stats are at 14. The growth is amazing and the boy realizes that he needs to take advantage of the opportunity. He turns to Kang and tells her that now they are going to attack the dungeon of Tower D. It is important that she follows the instructions she will receive, otherwise she will probably be murdered. Kang starts to stutter and he says that everything will be fine, just obey and they will get out alive. A few minutes later, the protagonist defeats all the foxes. He gave the iron gauntlets he received from the hunt to Kang, just to make sure everything will be fine. Now the preparations are complete, and all that remains is to follow the plan. Kim reaches the first floor and a message says that the level to enter the tutorial dungeon is 5. The protagonist confirms and they enter. The goblins notice the presence of the newcomers. Kim tells the girl that they should do as they planned. In the next moment, the protagonist removes Kang from the group and tells her to start with the goblins. The girl obeys and goes towards the target. She uses the iron gauntlets to protect her fist and increase the damage to the enemy. In this dungeon, the goblins are not as strong as outside. In this area, they are neutral. The protagonist chose to start with the goblins first because that way the foxes will not attack. Kim is impressed when he sees Kang's ease in finishing off the goblins. The attacks that the girl receives do not even cause damage. In a matter of minutes, most of the targets are eliminated. The protagonist says that it is better to rest because the mini-boss must appear when all the goblins and foxes are defeated. Kang seems to have rested and is ordered to eliminate the remaining foxes. She goes back to work and is watched by Kim. He didn't think the girl was so good. At that moment, a new message arrives for the protagonist, and he is informed that he received a pause. The Guardians are interested. A pause is basically a power that temporarily isolates you from everything on a field. It's an item that only the admin can use, but the protagonist never thought that Sinya would spend something so expensive on a player like him. The admin referred to Kim as insane who tried to guess everything until now, then asks if he could imagine this. The protagonist replies that maybe he did. Sinya calls him a fool for wanting to face the level 13 goblin soldier when he is only at level 8. The truth is that the woman wants to stop his advance because she doesn't want him to be eliminated now. She warns that it is very dangerous to enter there. The protagonist asks if she is worried about him. The administrator can't answer. Kim comes to the conclusion that he is an important content for the beings who are watching, mainly because he is acting as if he knows the future. This must have interested the Guardians. The protagonist takes advantage of this and says that Senya couldn't come up with any good excuses. He dares to say that she speaks very badly. This opinion of Kim's is because he hadn't heard of her in the past, so he assumed that Senya didn't work well as an administrator and was excluded before things could move forward. Senya asks if he's trying to insult her by saying that she talks very badly. Kim replies that she's trying to help and suggests a method to make things exciting for the Guardians. When the pause is over, just say that he cannot defeat the goblin soldier. The protagonist intends to face the goblin and surprise the Guardians. Senya seems skeptical, but Kim says that the Guardians will be surprised to see a level 8 defeating a boss. In addition, Senya will also be praised by the show. But before the protagonist asks for a deal in exchange for helping her arouse the interest of the Guardians, Senya is about to cast a spell, while telling Kim not to break the limits of her patience. He says that if she does something against him, it will be a waste to have used the pause. The administrator agrees and asks what the deal is. A while later, Kang finishes the monsters and runs to Kim. Her current level is 7. The system warns that the conditions for the mini-boss have been met, and the goblin was summoned. He was bigger than the protagonist thought. So Kim hides with the girl and says that this is crazy. The goblin soldier throws a spear at the wall they are hiding. The protagonist hugs Kang and realizes that it will be difficult. The ability of this monster is blade throwing. Kim has a plan to win and puts the girl back in the group. Then he gets up and tells Senya that this is how a level 8 player defeats a mini-boss. The protagonist holds the sword in front of the opponent while the goblin soldier points the spear at him. That monster displayed a superior aura to the other goblins. Kim learned in the past life that this soldier usually has 2 attack patterns. The first is stabbing and the second is balanced attacks. At that moment, the goblin performs the second attack. Kim dodges and finds an opening in the defense, then hits blade in the enemy's belly. Unfortunately, it wasn't a deep cut, but the protagonist already expected it because of his level. Suddenly, the goblin jumps with the spear prepared to stab Kim. The attack was fast. The protagonist still managed to see his movements and used the sword to hold the spear. After that, he looked for a new opening. On the other hand, Kang was being surrounded by little goblins and foxes. The girl is attacked and thinks that the best thing to do now is to hold on. It was the order she received from the protagonist. She is afraid of disobeying and being abandoned. Senya watches the battle carefully when she suddenly receives the message that many Guardians have entered the channel. One of them asks if she is really watching a level 8 player against the boss of the tutorial dungeon. Senya confirms that she is, but the Guardians do not believe that these moves are from someone who is level 8. The administrator understands the surprise of the superior beings. She would not believe it either if it were them. Anyway, Senya thinks that the protagonist will not win this duel. Not for the fight itself, but she believes that the boy will be exhausted. At that moment, the protagonist screams for Kang. The girl uses her fists to finish off the goblins and foxes. The protagonist has leveled up thanks to the XP acquired by her. This time the blade works better on the enemy's body and Kim recovers her stats. Leveling up not only increases his stats but also recovers health and removes all status conditions. The protagonist took the opportunity to ask Kang to fend off the beasts. The girl obeys. From the beginning, Kim's plan was for Kang to share the experience he is having while he continues to fight the boss, so he can recover from all injuries and hit the enemy's weak point. Kang actively follows the plan. The protagonist avoids the boss's attack until he reaches the level he needs. The enemy's blade passes very close to his face and he is almost hit. The system warns that his current level is 10. The protagonist stops running and jumps towards the boss's neck. The next moment the blade hits the opponent, but the cut was not deep. In fact, this was Kim's strategy to gain momentum and hit the blade on the back of the goblin's head. He executes the attack successfully. The rusty sword was destroyed after this blow. The system warns that the protagonist is the first to hunt this monster. In addition, the victory was recognized as solo. At that moment, Kang runs towards him and hugs him. Kim hugged her back without even realizing it. The system notifies that a hidden condition has been fulfilled. The protagonist wonders what kind of condition this is and hopes that it is not something bad. Meanwhile, near the building in Gwanghwamun, a man uses his fist to defend himself from the group of level 7 wolves. The other survivors are surprised because a single blow was enough. This guy who defeated the wolves with his fist is the famous Yu Hian. In the past, he was known as the King of the Fist. The survivors praise Yu Hian, saying that he is the strongest in the tutorial. At that moment, the group notices Kim and Kang inside the building. Yu Hian starts waving at them. The protagonist looks on and can't help but recognize the King of the Fist. The scene changes to a few minutes ago, when Kim has just defeated the boss of the dungeon. Before entering the building, he was sure that he was someone with no talent at all, but the chance of defeating the goblin soldier was 50-50. This means that there is a chance that he will continue to be a talented player after the tutorial ends. Suddenly, the system introduces a new guardian who has her eye on him. This guardian is called Lady of the Scale. The name is familiar to the protagonist, because in the past life he heard rumors that the Lady of the Scales was much loved by the players. Unlike the brave Lion King, she prioritizes the safety of the players. Kim didn't expect that she would be interested in him. He assumes that the Lady of the Scales is only doing this because she thinks he is helping an abandoned child. Senya interrupts her thoughts by taking a sword from the inventory. She tells the protagonist that it is her reward for defeating the boss. It is a normal quality iron sword with a medium and medium durability attack power. It's better than the previous one that the protagonist used at least. Kang asks where they are going now, and Kim replies that for Changjashan, they will hunt as many wolves in the city as possible. The girl asks if they are not foxes. The protagonist replies no, this time they will hunt level 7 wolves and the bosses of the level 9 pack. Kang asks how he knows so many details. Kim lies saying that he heard some rumors. Initially, the protagonist's original plan was to wait in a near safe zone until the King of the Fist attacked the second floor of Tower D, but changed his mind after knocking down the monster from the first floor. Now the protagonist has another goal that goes beyond just surviving. He tested his talent today and proved that it is possible to raise the money to help his family. Kim doesn't know how long her talent will last, so she decides to benefit while she still has a chance. The scene changes to the current moment. Yoo-hyun meets the protagonist and asks if he is a survivor too. Kim didn't think he would meet the King of Fists so soon. Later, this man will become one of the 8 most famous players in Korea. The protagonist confirms that he is a survivor. He notices the group that is with the King of Fist and notes that this guy is really talented for being able to protect so many people. At that moment, Yoo-hyun suggests that the protagonist and the girl join them. The man thinks that a larger group has a better chance of surviving. Kim avoids shaking Yoo-hyun's hand and says that he is okay with going alone. This surprises the King of the Fist and his group. The protagonist explains that there are only a few days left for the tutorial to end, and he thinks he can turn around. Yoo-hyun replies that if he prefers it that way, that's fine, then wishes him good luck. The group thinks the protagonist is being too convinced. He is the first person who denies Yoo-hyun's help. The King of the Fist says goodbye. Kim decides to give advice before going. He warns that if he encounters a monster too strong and things get out of control, the King of the Fist should aim for the left eye. Yoo-hyun thanks him for the tip. Later that day, the protagonist arrives in Cheongai. Kang asks if he thinks that group will be okay. He replied yes, because the guy who is the leader seems very strong. In fact, the protagonist's memory said that only Yoo-hyun would survive. In the past life, they finished the first floor without any problems, but Tower D took all the members of the group. Only the King of the Fist remained alive. He received the title of Tutorial Finisher because he was the first person to clear the dungeon of Tower D. Years later, Yoo-hyun revealed that bringing other people to experience the dungeon on the second floor of Tower D was his biggest regret. The protagonist is not sure if this scene will repeat itself again, but he couldn't risk being murdered like the other members of the group. Suddenly, Kang catches his attention, saying that he found the target. Kim says it's time to hunt. The girl uses a staff to hit the monsters, while Kim uses the sword. He is willing to pass level 10 as soon as possible to improve his state. After a few minutes of attacks and several corpses on the ground, the girl realizes that it is much easier to use a staff than steel fists. The system appears and congratulates Kim for being the first to reach level 11. He received the title of First Pioneer. This title is guaranteed to the person who arrives first in the new territory. A 20% experience can be applied along with your title. The protagonist has never heard of anything like this. The only title he remembered was that of Tutorial Finisher that in the past life was acquired by the King of the Fist. Kim realizes that the level restriction has not yet been removed. Maybe that's why he received this title. The protagonist decides to put his doubts aside a little and tells Kang that they must move on. The two walk while being observed by the administrator. Senya tells the Guardians that she also has this suspicion, so she will confirm. The next day, Kang and Kim enter the hospital, which is currently a safe zone. The protagonist has the feeling that the administrator was annoyed. It was probably because of the conversation they had yesterday. She asked what title he had won, but the protagonist replied that he wasn't going to say. That's the reason for Senya's silence today. The Guardians cannot know what a player's title is unless the player says it out loud. The protagonist believes that they pressured Senya to find out about the title of First Pioneer. Anyway, Kim decides that won't happen for now. After that, he and Kang talk about the next destination. The scene changes to the building in Gwanghwamun. Yoo-hyun warns the group that he doesn't know what danger is waiting for them inside the dungeon, but is sure that he will have many rewards. So that makes it clear that he intends to enter the dungeon and wanted the group to go with him. The members trust in Yoo-hyun's strength and say that they will accompany him. The guy is happy and says that they will get ready to enter tomorrow. Meanwhile, in Cheongaishan, the wolves continue to be defeated by Kim's sword. Kang says that this time it was faster, and he replies that it's because they're used to it. It's the second consecutive day of wolf hunting. The protagonist has reached level 12. At the moment, the attack is so fast that they are waiting for the wolves to reappear. Kang points to a wolf that has just been reborn. The protagonist eliminates the monster again. At that moment, a red notification appears. The message says that all the qualification conditions of the hidden piece have been met. Kim grits her teeth, realizing that she has failed to stay away from danger. Suddenly a crack appears welcoming the King of Wolves, better known as Lycanthrope. The protagonist looks horrified at the enemy and yells for Kang to run. The two try to run away and the girl asks what is happening. Kim says she can't explain it now. Lycanthrope leaves the portal enraged. The protagonist manages to hide with Kang and the system notifies that the howl has affected the players' bodies. The girl falls to the ground feeling her body paralyzed. Kim asks her to crawl into some car and stay hidden there. At this point the protagonist can no longer hide. He did not expect to find the Lycanthrope during the tutorial. It is likely that this king is stronger than the boss of Tower D. The protagonist can't even see his level, but assumes that the monster is between level 20 to 25. It is definitely not an enemy that should appear in the tutorial. The difference in level is too big. With no other alternative, the protagonist uses the high resistance elixir. His strength has been temporarily increased by 6. Kim taunts the wolf, saying to hurry up. The Lycanthrope furiously advances towards him. Meanwhile, Kang hides behind a car and hopes that everything goes well. She can't see the level of the monster and concludes that that boss is on a completely different level from the monsters they have eliminated so far. The girl wonders what the protagonist is planning to do. Kim knows that when the system doesn't display the enemy's level, it's basically trying to tell you that you can't defeat your opponent with the current level. The protagonist believes that the difference between them is 10 points. In his past life, he watched a lot of videos about what he should do if he encountered a monster much stronger than him. According to the explanations, there is only a single method to survive in this case. Kim remembers this and calls the inventory. He takes the high-quality ointment to sharpen blades. Lycanthrope jumps with his claws towards his neck. The protagonist already expected and managed to dodge. He also knew that the second method that the Wolf King would use would be to land and turn to give a kick. The moment Lycanthrope lands on the ground, Kim throws the ointment on his feet. The king loses his balance and the protagonist takes the opportunity to knock him to the ground with the strength of his body, then hits several blows with his fist on the enemy's face. The hint that the protagonist saw in the past life is that to defeat Lycanthrope he would have to push him into the water. At that moment, Kim throws the monster into the river. Kang looks impressed as the protagonist tries to catch his breath. Suddenly, Lycanthrope reaches the surface and the girl screams that he has shrunk in size. The protagonist says that now he must be no different from a city wolf. Kang praises Kim's martial arts, and he replies that he has never trained this before. The girl says this is even more amazing because he looks like a fight movie character. Kim gets a little embarrassed and doesn't think it's as amazing as Kang thinks. Without wasting time, he enters the water and ends up with the Wolf King. Several screens of the system warn him that he has leveled up. The protagonist earned the title Excellent Hunter thanks to the defeat of Lycanthrope. He also won some coins as sponsorship from the Nameless Watcher and the Lady of the Scale. The Guardians were happy with their strategy. However, the brave Lion King mocked, saying that it was a coward strategy. Senya appears after Lycanthrope is eliminated. She confirmed that the protagonist has reached level 15, so it's time to explain about the item shop. Kim had already heard about it in her past life. Senya explains that he can buy special items with the coins he has. The item shop rank will be set to tutorial, because he is currently in the tutorial field. At the moment, only 4 items can be listed for purchase. Kim thinks carefully about what he should buy. Currently, he has 7,942 coins. Maybe stocking up on the high-strength elixir is the best option. At that moment, Senya interrupts her thoughts and asks if he has a real name. The protagonist asks why she thinks he would reveal something like that. The administrator avoids eye contact and says she was just curious, then asks if he will check the new title. Kim replies that she will personally check after she chooses her items in the store. The protagonist realized that Senya wanted him to check the title in the status window so that she could also see it, but in this life, Kim decided to be as mysterious as possible. The title of Excellent Hunter gave the protagonist a new ability. 20% damage increase and 10% speed increase. Apparently it is better than the first title. He is happy with this and decides that his next destination is Tower D. Kang asks, surprised, if it is the second floor of that dungeon they fought the goblin soldier. Kim replies yes, and she asks if he didn't say it was too dangerous. The protagonist says it's true. On the second floor, there is a guy much more dangerous than the goblin soldier. The scene changes to Tower D, where some corpses were scattered on the ground. Only Yu Hyun is still standing. He looks scared at his opponent and wonders how he can win from something like this. The giant goblin stares at him with hatred in his eyes. The King of the Fist is determined to win because he doesn't want the same fate as his comrades. At that moment, Yu Hyun hits the fist in the giant's face, who quickly counterattacks with a punch to his shoulder. The guy feels intense pain and realizes that his bones have broken. Even after several attacks, the giant remains intact. Yu Hyun feels that he is fighting against a concrete wall. He doesn't know how he will get out of here alive. At that moment, a flashback flashes in his mind from when the protagonist advised him to aim for the left eye if he encountered an extremely dangerous opponent. The King of the Fist decides to use this information to his advantage, but before acting, he is hit in the stomach by the giant. The attack continues and he is thrown into the wall. Yoo-hyun receives a lot of damage and cough red liquid. He has already given up hope of getting out of here alive. At that moment, the system announces the entry of new players. Kang looks scared at the condition of the people. The protagonist is warned that he can only escape from this area 10 seconds after entering. The boss of the tutorial, called the Magic Troll, notices the newcomers. Kim looks around and hears some whispers asking for help. There are still people alive among the corpses. Yoo-hyun fell unconscious after the last attack. The protagonist takes the healing elixir from the inventory. Suddenly, someone tells them to run away. The man in the brown clothes sitting on the ground warns that there is no way to beat this boss. It is better to take advantage of the 10 seconds he has to escape. Kim gives the healing potions to Kang and asks her to heal all the injured people she meets. She must tell the healed people not to interfere when the fight starts. At that moment, the guy again yells to go away or they will end up as he. The protagonist is confident, because no one knows the monster on the second floor as much as he does. This boss also doesn't show the level. Trolls are famous for their excellent vitality and resistance, while the magic troll is known for its strong physical blows and doesn't take any damage from unarmed attack. That's the reason to remain intact after fighting the King of the Fist, but there is a downside to all this. At that moment, the giant tries to attack him. Kim dodges it without problems, because this type of monster has slow attacks. There is no strategy to beat the troll, so what the protagonist thinks about doing is hitting the blade until the opponent can't regenerate. In his past life, the King of the Fist was able to defeat this thing with his fists. The blows were so good that he didn't give the troll a chance to regenerate. At that moment, the man looks surprised to see that the boy is managing to get red liquid from the troll. The protagonist uses the title of Excellent Hunter. So far, he manages to dodge the blows without any problem, thanks to the points he put in agility before getting here. Kim thinks he can win the fight as long as he's careful with it. He takes a few hits with the sword at the enemy. 1 hour later, the duel is observed by the members that Kang managed to heal. They are impressed with the newcomer, especially because the protagonist has already been fighting for 1 hour without rest. The man in the brown clothes confesses that he thought Yoo-hyun was an incomparable genius, but needs to change his mind because this boy is much better. After almost 5 hours of attack, the troll is still alive. But the protagonist realizes that there is little left because the monster seems to be on the limit. Kim feels that he would not have made it this far if it was his past self without talent. He decides that he will not think so because what matters is that now he is a player. So we'll concentrate the last 15 minutes to destroy this thing. Suddenly a message arrives saying that the brave Lion King wishes to offer you a favor. The Guardian sent a power called superhuman strength. Now Kim's next attack will be 100% stronger. The protagonist is not happy about it because he spent many hours causing damage to the monster to finish without any help, but now this power of the brave Lion King will end his plans. In fact, that power hinders more than helps. The guy in the brown suit is surprised by the injuries the boy has already managed to cause. Kim doesn't stop cursing the Guardian mentally. He's sure the guy messed up his plan on purpose. The protagonist even says that if one day he has the power to end a higher being, the brave Lion King will be the first on his list. Kim is in doubt about what he should do. On the other hand, Kang continues in the function of healing the injured and realizes that Yoo-hyun has woken up. The guy looks ahead, scared, looking for the monster, and sees it with a different aura. Suddenly an arrow is shot from the bow and hits the boss's left eye. Kim remains motionless. The person responsible for defeating the boss starts saying that he wouldn't let anyone steal his reward, since he was the one who got here first. Kim tells him to run. The guy doesn't understand what's happening and the protagonist screams that he won't be able to save anyone. At that moment, the system notifies that the troll's consciousness has been restricted. The monster simply stands up as if it has not taken any damage. Now the magic troll has entered berserker mode. The dungeon area has been disabled because of the boss's loss of consciousness. At that moment, the protagonist desperately screams for Kang to run. She obeys and he asks her to go to the escalator. The system warns that the escalator can only move 15 people at once. The troll starts the attack with the man who shot the arrow at him. Yoo-hyun watches the scene in horror. Kang and Kim continue running. The protagonist feels that it is his fault. The mistake basically happened because of the greed of the other players and because that damn Guardian wanted to harm him. So he feels guilty for not considering these possibilities. In addition, now that the dungeon has been deactivated, the troll is not limited to only the second floor, which means that the entire building is without security. With the exception of the basement, the protagonist asks the girl to go down the stairs to the second floor of the basement. The only safe area is the parking lot on the second floor of Tower D. Kim opens the door and finds the emergency stairs. At that moment, a roar catches his attention. The troll managed to reach him. This means that the people on the second floor have already been exterminated. Suddenly, the opponent advances to grab them. The protagonist grabs Kang by the arm and throws himself down the stairs with her. The girl is worried, and he says not to panic. Unfortunately, at that level, the protagonist cannot take any hits. Otherwise, it is likely that he will not survive. The boy cannot help but curse the fact that the safe zone is so far away. They keep running towards underground and find a door. The protagonist says that it is enough to break it and they will be safe. As soon as it rings the door, the system notifies that it has detected a critical situation. Kim remains motionless, and even without looking back, he feels that he is going to be attacked. There is no time to find another way out, and he has nowhere to run. The fear was so great that he forcibly awakened the ability of sixth sense. The troll's fist arrives at the protagonist in a matter of seconds, and he closes his eyes. But she doesn't feel anything and realizes that Kang went in front to block the attack. Kim screams for the girl. Kang made this decision because when she saw the troll's attack, she knew that the protagonist was not going to survive. In addition, he had already done a lot for her, so the girl decided to sacrifice herself. The lady on the scale was impressed by her courage to give her life for someone else, and that's why she granted a shield platinum. It was thanks to this that Kang did not receive the troll's attack directly on his body. Eventually, the shield was broken because the strength of that monster was on another level. The protagonist realized that it was a platinum shield by the noise of the defense. Kang ends up fainting from the pressure of the fist against his body. Kim carries it in his arms and runs towards the entrance door of the secret area. All he has to do now to stay safe is go through that door. The protagonist breaks the door with the weight of his own body. The troll approaches but can't get in. Kim is happy that this monster is different from those who can enter a safe area. Without wasting time, he tries to wake Kang up and sees that she has really lost consciousness. In addition, his arm was badly injured when he tried to stop the attack. The protagonist takes a portion of healing and uses it on the girl. He doesn't understand where she got that ability from, but they are alive thanks to this. Outside, the troll knocks on the door trying to get in. Kim is annoyed by the noise. At that moment, the troll explodes. The protagonist looks at it without understanding anything, but the system warns that the reason was that the boss was already in his final moments when he activated the Berserker mode. The administrator appears. The system notifies that the next difficulty will be based on the number of survivors. A total of 5,087 survivors have been detected, and therefore the next difficulty will be low. The players outside are relieved that they finally got a break. The protagonist realizes that the number remains the same as in his past life. Anyway, it doesn't matter now. He was worried because he used all the potions to his advantage to wake Kang up, and she remains unconscious. The system adds that the rewards will be distributed by the administrator. In addition, the title of Tutorial Finisher will be given to players who survived in the main dungeon. Yoo-hyun was the only one who received the title. It was as the protagonist thought. After a few minutes, Kang still hasn't woken up. Kim didn't want to have to do that, but proposes an exchange with Senia. He wants to save Kang's life, so he needs to level up the item shop to increase the quality of the healing potion. Senia asks if he really wants a contract for it. Kim replies yes and buys the high-quality potions. After the contract between a player and the intermediate administrator, the Guardians will only be able to assist the target player if the administrator allows it. The more interesting the player is, the better the administrator's earnings will be. The protagonist believes that it must be quite expensive since the Guardians are always watching him. Closing a contract now wasn't his goal, but he couldn't let the person who saved his life pass away like that. Kim gives the new healing potion while telling himself that Kang was very brave for blocking that attack. The girl doesn't react even after drinking the elixir. The protagonist begs her to wake up. Suddenly, Kang starts to move and opens his eyes, asking if he survived. Kim finds the question funny and replies that she is alive. The girl notices the bottles and questions if he wasn't the one who said he would abandon her if something like this happened. The protagonist looks away, not knowing what to answer. He justifies himself by saying that it would be a waste to let her go now. Kang starts to cry with happiness. While Kim asks Senia to deliver the individual rewards, the administrator replies that she will calculate it now. At that moment, the protagonist interrupts her and remembers that he asked her to increase the rank of the item store in exchange for the contract, but they haven't closed the contract yet. Senia realizes the mistake she made and replies that she remembers it. The administrator simply accepted the contract and increased the level of the store without creating a document to prove it. The protagonist considers that Senia made a beginner's mistake. Anyway, the contract does not exist, and now he wants to know about the rewards. The administrator takes a deep breath. In the next moment, several messages appear informing the individual rewards. Kim seems happy with the awards. After 7 days, the tutorial ended. Players who survived will be able to claim all prizes based on their achievements. The protagonist did not know what his reward would be because in the past life he did not have any achievements. But now he was facing the system. Thanks to the fights, the protagonist received 3 more points in all statistics. His title of Excellent Hunter is leveled up, and Senia asks if he wants to check the effects. Kim replies that he can do it himself. The administrator is discredited by this answer. The title of Excellent Hunter has increased to 20% strength and speed, in addition to 10% gain in experience. The protagonist remembers that he won this title after defeating the wolf lycanthrope when he was still at level 10. He never heard of this title in the past life because probably no one was able to win. Even so, he can't help but notice that this title is amazing, but it's nothing compared to the sixth sense that brought a skill called fusion. There weren't many records about this skill in his past life. Some players witnessed the existence but didn't know much information about the fusion. The last record said that fusion is a strengthening method found in high-ranking players. This was another of the blessings that the protagonist received. First, he decides to focus on the sixth sense, because he thinks that this power can be infused with some bonuses he received from the Guardians, such as the Observer's calm eye, for example. He presses to merge the two powers. The system accepts the request and the protagonist is happy that it worked. Suddenly, he feels as if something sharp is going through his chest. Kang is worried. The system says that this is the side effect of the fusion. If the pain is not endured, it will result in the player's death. Kim starts spitting red liquid as she mentally talks that the system should have warned her before. Her eyes turn red and he falls to the ground. Kang runs to him, asking him not to leave her here. The system warns him that the fusion was a success, and the innate ability called the Eye of Perception has been created. The protagonist begins to lose consciousness and the girl's screams become more distant. Suddenly, Kim opens her eyes and he realizes that he is alive. At that moment, he hears a noise and looks to the side. His sister looks angrily at him. Kim can see her mood thanks to the Eye of Perception. Hayoung is 24 years old and not a player. The system describes her as kind. His sister scolds him for being missing for 7 days without giving news and now ending up in the hospital. Hayoung yells that he didn't care about her or how her mother was. After saying that, she leaves the room and closes the door. The protagonist says that Hayoung hasn't changed anything. The girl starts crying outside the room and Kim hears clearly. He assumes that this ability is thanks to the fusion he did before losing consciousness. The guy feels bad for making her cry, but all this is to prevent her from going to work in that factory and also to help with her mother's expenses. He just wants the chance to live with her family again. At that moment, the protagonist's mother enters the room worried about her son. Suddenly, Kang breaks into the hospital and finds Kim's room. She jumps into his arms while crying, saying that she was afraid of losing him. The protagonist is happy that she is okay. In the end, Kim lived those 7 days of tutorial for the second time and survived. But now it was different. This time he survived as a player with talent, conquest and dungeon and reward. He couldn't even imagine that one day he would have skills. The scene changes to a little later at the Seoul station. Everyone was living normally when suddenly a portal opened in front of them. The people who didn't live the 7 days of tutorial in Jongno never witnessed the appearance of the monsters and tried to report the case to the police. But Kim and Kang were some of the survivors who were there to find the portal for the second time. This time the protagonist can change things. A month has passed since the worst incident Jongno has ever seen. The news broke the news that only about 5,000 out of 150,000 survived the catastrophe. The event was named the tutorial and the survivors still couldn't overcome their fear. Many lost their family members in the incident. The news journalist welcomes the special guest who survived the tutorial. The famous tutorial finisher who saved many people during the catastrophe, Yuian, is silent. The journalist says that he played a very important role and some survivors witnessed his actions. When he eliminated goblins and foxes with a single movement of the fist, the journalist says that his strength is admirable and asks what Yuian thinks of the title tutorial finisher. At the same moment, the king of the fist remembers the protagonist and confesses that he was actually lucky, because the real hero did all the work and he just got the credit. The journalist says that humility is the trait of a hero and he really believes that the real hero was Yuhyun, just as other survivors also believe. The king of the fist does not agree with this. His answer was not even humble. The truth is that the real hero was someone else. There is no denying that without the presence of the protagonist, this guy would have been crushed. He himself understands that Kim's appearance was essential. Yuhyun has not seen him since the 7 days of the tutorial ended, but he is sure that the protagonist survived and promises that he will find him to repay the help. The scene changes to the dungeon that appeared at the second exit of the Seoul station. People start to run away in fear of the monsters that can come out of there. Kang asks if the protagonist will enter, and he replies yes. They both enter the dungeon, and the system notifies them that the Guardians are watching. Kim decided to clear the dungeon before anyone else, because he has seen several videos about this dungeon in the past. In a while, several players will do the same as him. The protagonist looks at the girl and asks her to follow the plan. Suddenly, a voice warns that this dungeon is recommended for 7 players. Senya reaffirms that just 2 people entering this place is extremely dangerous, so she asks the protagonist to leave and come back when he gets the 5 remaining people. Kim simply ignores the woman's warning and leaves her talking to herself. He warns again that this is how he plays. Meanwhile, in the financial district of Uido, someone asks surprised if the guy is wanting to leave just because he became famous after appearing on TV. Yuhyun replies that he is resigning because he wants to follow a new path. The boss says that the company is one of the best in the financial district and does not understand why he is doing this. The man realizes that he will not be able to convince Yuhyun to stay and agrees to the dismissal. He wishes good luck to his companion. The Fist King's decision was not random. Since the tutorial ended, several monsters began to appear frequently on the streets of the city. The items that players are earning by defeating these monsters are very worthwhile. It's practically a new job market. Yu Hyun leaves the company where he worked and starts walking the streets when suddenly he overhears a private conversation. A guy tells his friend that it's better to run away from this place because a portal appeared at the Seoul station just like the one that appeared in Jongno. At that moment, a hologram appears to Yu Hyun and talks about the new dungeon. This guy is the intermediate administrator of the King of Fist. His name is Neptune. He advises Yu Hyun to form a group with 7 people and finish the dungeon. At that moment, Neptune receives the information that 2 people have already entered and says that now Yu Hyun only needs to find 4 more people. The system warns that the dungeon will self-destruct if it is not completed in a certain period of time. There is a possibility for monsters to escape when the dungeon is not finished. In addition, only those who are players can clear the place. Meanwhile, in another place, Kang looks around in surprise at the damp cave. Kim is on alert because she doesn't know what she can expect from here, but she is more confident since Kang has reached level 15. Suddenly, the girl says she has found some paths. The protagonist is faced with 7 different paths that lead to different places, and the items also depend on the path the player takes. He finally understands why the dungeon asks for 7 players. The question now is if of these 7 paths, only 1 person will get out alive. The protagonist says he can't risk his life with Kang. He thinks that's what Senya tried to warn him. Anyway, it's too early to give up. Kim asks Kang to wait for him to return. The protagonist enters the first path called Nepala. A golden light covers his body. There is a reason why the Seoul Station dungeon has 7 forked paths. The player needs to clear all the paths to finish the dungeon. The trick is to get the 7 rewards that are on the 7 paths. But it is not that easy. When a player steps on one of the paths, the difficulty is automatically set to 7 people. This means that the protagonist will need to solve the first path alone with great difficulty. Thanks to Kim's good memory, he remembered the different strategies he saw in his past to complete this place. This gives him more confidence. So he stepped on the second path called Diugo. Then he stepped on the third path called Delancha. The secret trick to pass this dungeon with less amount of people it is to open all the paths at one again. In this way, the difficulty decreases. The 7 paths have been opened and now they have the difficulty of a single path. Kang asks if that was all, and he replies that yes. The conditions to finish the dungeon do not say that all the paths must be done at the same time. Thanks to this, the protagonist will be able to finish one by one without problems. At that moment, the system asks if he wants to enter the first path. Meanwhile, outside Seoul Station, many passersby gathered to observe the portal. The police cordoned off the dungeon and did not allow anyone to approach as it was too dangerous. Passersby are advised to retreat. Yuyan looked carefully inside the station. Suddenly, a voice says that this is too annoying and refers to the soldiers as disgusting insects. Passersby at the scene look towards the voice and notice a red man walking in the air. The army chief asks him to identify himself. Yuhyun quickly recognizes that guy because he saw him in the tutorial. He is also an intermediate administrator and his name is Chris. The king of the fist gets annoyed because if that administrator is here, it means that that annoying guy is too. The head of the corporation uses the loudspeaker to give the orders for Chris to retreat. Otherwise, the team will shoot. Suddenly, the administrator grabs the commander by the neck and asks what he's going to do. The snipers position themselves while the boss is hanged in front of everyone. The rain of bullets flies towards Chris, but he uses a defensive barrier and hits the soldiers with a red liquid. The men catch fire and the cries for help are heard. Chris tells the players to go in and clean the dungeon. Suddenly, he looks to the side and finds someone he knows. The administrator refers to Yuhyun as famous insect. The king of fist finds the player he didn't want to see. The player says that it's been a month since they last met. He confesses that he didn't think he would find the tutorial finisher here. That player is Seo Ju-hwan. Yuhyun greets him back. Seo met the king of the fist during an attack against the goblins. People ran in fear of those monsters, but Yuhyun seemed to face danger without fear. Seo says he understands what he came here to do. The world has changed and now they need to adapt because the monsters will keep appearing, so there's nothing better than making money by eliminating these things. Yuhyun is silent, as the guy says that the amount is 7 people, but his group only has 6 people, so he invites Yuhyun to join him. Meanwhile, on the first path of the dungeon, the protagonist eliminates some level 12 black yaks, then tells Kang to concentrate. The animals keep coming towards him and the sharp blade does most of the work. Kim jumps on top of the yaks' heads and cuts off the antlers. After that, they fall to the ground. The protagonist repeats the same attack a few more times and eliminates 30 yaks. Kang is interested in the ability he used to take down the monsters and asks how he did it. The girl saw some players fighting and never noticed this ability before, so she asks what she needs to be able to do it. Kim pretends not to understand as if it were something natural in her body. He knows that the girl is curious, but he can't risk revealing something important in front of the guardians, so he advises Kang to keep practicing so he can do it in the future. The observer Nameless was silent, while the lady on the scale liked his answer. Unlike the demon guardian who despised this excuse, Kang asks if it is enough to practice, and the protagonist replies that yes, if she gives all her best in the future, she will receive the reward. This was the advice that the protagonist wanted to have heard in his past life. The girl decided to trust him. Suddenly, something catches his attention. Kim approaches and realizes that it is a floating ring. He was already wondering when this was going to appear. This ring is the reward of Path 1. Now the protagonist heads to Path 2. Kang is surprised because he thought they were going to destroy all the monsters to get experience and level up, just like they did during the tutorial. Kim replies that there is another priority. Besides, they are not the only ones here. At that moment, Seo's group enters the dungeon. The guy comments that it is nostalgic to enter a place like this because it reminds him of Tower D. He asks what Yoo-hyun thinks. The King of the Fist replies that he does not have a good memory of that place. More than 10 people who were with him passed away that day, so the guy blames himself for not being able to save them. Seo gives a satisfied smile and says it's better to move on. The guy in the hood warns that there are several entrances. Seo points to one of the paths and says that he will start with that one. The group enters the first path. The scene changes to the protagonist who collects the reward from the second path. This time the necklace appeared faster than the ring. Kang asks if they go to the third path and Kim says yes. He is happy that the girl has understood that retrieving the items is much more important than wasting time eliminating the monsters. Suddenly she stops and apologizes. The protagonist asks what happened, and she says that she thinks she is too slow. The girl watched Kim eliminating several yaks at once, while she wasted time focusing on one. Kang adds that she thinks she is a burden. Kim asks if at any time she saw him making any useless choice. Kang replies that it is not, and he says that this is the right answer. The protagonist adds that she is a child and should not blame herself so much. After that, they enter the third path. This time they are level 14 purple yaks. Suddenly, one of the monsters shoots his horns at the girl. She is hit in the head and screams. The protagonist asks if it hurt, and the girl confesses that it didn't, but she's sure something flew in her face. Kim says that these yaks use the ranged attack to shoot their horns. It won't be much trouble for her to deal with it. Kang widens her eyes, asking what he just said. Suddenly, a second wave of horns fly towards her. The girl uses her arms to defend herself and says that the protagonist is much better at this than her. Kim replies that she is much better at blocking. Kang asks him not to take advantage of it just because she doesn't get hurt by these things. She uses the defensive barrier. Suddenly, the monsters fall unconscious to the ground. Kang asks what happened, and the protagonist replies that it happens after they throw the horns. The reward of the third path appears. This time it's a bracelet. The girl says that these yaks give a lot of experience and asks if they can't hunt the rest. Kim replied that she has already said that there are other people trying to finish the dungeon. If they clear all the rooms, there will be nothing left for the other players. At that moment, the Seo group faces the yaks. They go through some difficulties and need the help of the King of the Fist. Just one blow from Yoo-hyun is enough for that monster to fall to the ground. The guy is praised and someone says that he really deserves the merit of being the finisher of the tutorial. Seo gives a forced smile. The group keeps hunting and so far has not been able to find any rewards. In addition, the amount of experience points is very bad. Seo asks if Yoo-hyun agrees and the guy replies that yes, they haven't found anything worthwhile so far. Seo has a suspicion about it but prefers to keep quiet and go to the next path. All players confirm that they want to go to path 2. They find more yaks. This time there are several corpses on the ground with their horns cut off. Yoo-hyun wonders what this guy is thinking. Seo is very bothered. He knew that there were many items and rewards in this dungeon, but it seems that someone arrived here before them. Seo thinks this is unlikely since his group was the first to arrive here. Plus they brought Yoo-hyun. So he doesn't know who could be so strong to pass this dungeon. Suddenly Seo has an idea of how to find out who is doing it. He warns his companions to finish off these monsters because they will follow another path. A while later, the protagonist clears the 6th path. Kang tries to catch his breath. The reward is a shield. The protagonist realizes that the durability is too low to really be used as a shield. The girl says that all the items seem to be very good. Now, only the 7th item remains. Kim says that they need to finish the dungeon soon, then both enter the 7th path. Suddenly, Kang feels a strange presence and looks up. She soon catches the protagonist's attention. At that moment, Seo's group was waiting for them. Yoo-hyun recognizes Kim. The protagonist knew that at some point, he would be reached. But he is surprised by the delay. They are probably beginners. Seo tells himself that he is about to hunt some mice. The protagonist is surprised to see Yoo-hyun. He takes the moment to use his skill and check the guy's statuses. Seo says that he passed some corpses on the way and asks if it was him. The protagonist confirms. Kim recognizes Seo as someone nasty from his past. If the future repeats itself later, there will be an organization of evil players who go by the name of the Demon King. They committed atrocities that cannot be explained with words alone. The lieutenants led the atrocities. Among them was Seo. He was particularly famous among the lieutenants of the Demon King army for his cruelty. The protagonist didn't want to meet this guy. At that moment, Seo fakes a smile and praises his progress, but is surprised that only the two of them are cleaning the dungeon. The protagonist replies that only him and Kang are enough. The guy agrees, saying that he saw his work on the way, but asks if he doesn't need 5 people to complete the team. Kim replies that he prefers it as it is. Seo's group doesn't like the way the protagonist talks. Seo asks for silence and says that he has a proposal to make. The guy says that he and his whole group were the best hunters during the tutorial, so they can join and finish the last path faster. Seo says that this is also safer for the protagonist. Then they share the reward and everyone leaves happy. The player adds that no one owns the dungeon and advises the protagonist to choose the correct decision. Kang notices the threat in the tone of voice. Suddenly Kim says he agrees but has one condition: he wants to buy the 7th item. After that, everyone enters the 7th path and faces the monsters. The players seem to work hard. Kang realizes that this way he is faster, but she feels that something is wrong. The protagonist has slowed down his movements a lot, and his attacks are also superficial. Kang is worried. Seo also kept an eye on Kim's attacks. He says mentally that he thought this guy was very skilled for being able to pass 6 paths alone, but looking at it now, it seems that he is just a beginner who got lucky. At that moment, the 7th item appears. Seo is the first to check the statistics of the earrings and says that it is useless. The item has no special characteristics and its durability is almost at rock bottom. Kim asks if he found anything and the guy confirms. She hands over the earrings and says it looks old, then asks why the protagonist needs it. Kim replies that the dungeon has a special mission for the first player who enters. In this mission, you need to have the 7 items. Anyway, the protagonist thanks you for the help and sends the 500 coins as promised. Seo is surprised because to get this amount of coins, you need to eliminate at least 40 yaks. He soon thinks that it must be a great idea to steal the protagonist because he seems like someone weak. Seo makes himself available to help complete this unique mission. Kim fakes a smile and thanks him. Seo says he will call his group. Kang asks the protagonist if he is sure of this. She is worried because he looks exhausted. Kim replies that it's nothing like that. The girl is surprised and wonders if she thought wrong. The group walks deeper into that dungeon. Thanks to the eyes of perception, the protagonist can realize all the evil intentions that Seo has. Kim is living this life again and knows what these people will become in the future. Chances are, Seo's false personality will change when he finds the perfect opportunity to show his true face. After a few minutes of walking, the protagonist arrives at the destination. It is an underground city called Mandra Square. Suddenly, the statue of Mandra opens its eyes. This place appears after clearing all 7 paths. The dungeon of Soul Station was called the Final Destination in the original timeline. This nickname is because no one has figured out how to pass the statue of Mandra. At that moment, the statue asks who disturbed his sleep. Everyone was scared, except for the protagonist. The statue says that punishment is inevitable for those who decide to continue. Kim didn't get that far for nothing and says he came because he is qualified. The statue puts something in the protagonist's heart and tells him to prove it. The test appears. Kim knows that he needs to pass this test anyway to progress in clearing the dungeon. In case of failure, he will have his heart destroyed. The protagonist takes a deep breath and opens the inventory. Now he needs to put the rewards in order. Kim clearly remembers which path those items belong to. After filling all 7, the statue moves and says that he has been approved. She refers to Kim as a challenger and asks her name. The protagonist is about to answer when he remembers a video he watched on YouTube. The name of the channel was Kang Chilnam. That man explained that he had a solution to pass the final destination of the Soul Station dungeon. According to him, the statue of Mandra is basically the guard who protects the stables, and the mission of the guard is simple. There is something that the owner of the pastures has hidden in one of the 7 paths where the yaks graze. The statue must guard what is hidden until the owner returns. This means that the statue will ask your name to know if you are the owner. Then you will have to answer with a different name instead of your own if you want to take the hidden treasure. At that time, the protagonist studied almost all the dungeons because he hoped to be a player one day. At that moment, he answers the question of the statue, saying that he is the one who granted him a new life. His name is Rancher. No one understands why he is saying that. Suddenly, the statue bows, saluting its owner. The system notifies him that he has completed the hidden mission. Kim gives a satisfied smile as the guardians show surprise. Kang is happy, and the other players wonder why the statue is bowing. They haven't understood anything so far. Yuyan is also happy and says mentally that this only concludes that the protagonist is someone abnormal. The statue allows the challenger to choose one of the items he has kept all this time. Kim looks at the 3 options carefully and considers which one should work best in the next destination. Seo interrupts his thoughts and says that apparently he has won some special rewards. He congratulated the protagonist and said he couldn't see anything until now. Kim replies that it's because he has to wait. Seo gives a forced smile and says what will await him. The protagonist has his back to the group and uses the eye of perception. Kang is silent, waiting for him to finish his choices. At that moment, Seo directs an evil look at her. Kim soon realizes that the guy's first target will be Kang. Seo stares at it without fear of being noticed because he thinks the protagonist can't see since his back is turned. Kim tells the system that he chooses Mandra's gloves as a reward. The statue quickly delivers the order. Mandra's gloves have a special tolerance against poisons and protect the user from many types of infections. The statue says that he hopes this will be useful and help on his way. After that, the system notifies him that he has completed the square of Mandra. They will be forwarded to the next scenario of the quest called the Forked Path. The Forked Path is the last path of the Soul Station dungeon. If it fails, the dungeon will be broken. There are 2 paths and at least 1 player is needed on each path. Kang asks if they will go home after that. The protagonist firmly replies that she should keep her guard up and not leave his side. The girl agrees and starts to follow him. Suddenly someone asks if they too go alone. Seo says that he thought he was cooperating well, then suggests that everyone split into a group of 2 to participate in the last mission. Kim replies that he and Kang will do the first path alone. The group can do the second path. Seo says that his answer seems very confident and asks how the protagonist can guarantee that only 2 people is enough to pass the first path. Yoo-hyun starts to get annoyed by the subtle threats that Seo is making. Kim replies that he agrees with and asks how he suggests doing to divide the groups. Seo replies that it would be better to have a group of 4 people on the first path and a group of 3 people on the second. As the team of 3 people is smaller, he chooses the King of Fist to balance the group. The next Seo suggestion is that the protagonist is in the same group of 3 people as the King of Fist. Kang will be in the group of 4 people with him. The girl doesn't have a very good feeling hearing this suggestion. The protagonist touches her shoulder and looks like he's going to agree, but the next moment he changes his mood and says he hates all this. Seo asks why he said it and Kim replies that the explanation is simple. Kang is like his younger sister, and he doesn't plan to leave her alone. Seo laughs and asks where all this confidence comes from. He notices Senia and says that maybe the protagonist has found some guardian who gives a lot of benefits and information. Kim agrees that this is exactly what it is and Senia is discredited by this answer. The guardians are also curious about the source of the information. The protagonist curses mentally, saying that he really wanted to receive some information. Seo gives up on bringing Seo to his group, but asks Yoo-hyun to join the protagonist group. Kim replies that he has no problem with that. Seo says that they met at the end of the Forked Path. The guy gives a scary smile and wishes good luck. The 3 enter the first path and the system notifies that the tips to complete the mission are at the end. A safe zone was created temporarily because the amount of people is less than 5. Kang asks if all they have to do is get to the end of the path. Suddenly Yoo-hyun asks if the protagonist is the one who appeared on the 2nd floor of Tower D while he was fighting the magic troll. Maybe it would be difficult to recognize if he didn't always walk with this child. Kim asks why he's talking about it now. Yoo-hyun lowers his head and thanks him for saving him. The protagonist was surprised by this action. Yoo-hyun says that he is hero. If the protagonist hadn't lured that monster underground, surely he wouldn't be alive. The truth is that the protagonist only ran because he was trying to save his own life. Yoo-hyun asks for a chance to return the favor. Kim realizes that his status is showing sincerity. The protagonist never thought he would be the hero of the King of Fist. It seems unbelievable. Yoo-hyun even says that he will call him Big Brother, but Kim replies that they are both the same age. The King of the Fist says that he doesn't care and will call him that because he saved his life. The protagonist agrees while Kang watches the scene with a smile on his face. After that, the 3 go back to the mission path and find a crystal. Kim realizes that the item is still intact and tells the other 2 to sit down, because then they will have to do something very tiring. Yoo-hyun asks if they can really sit here. The protagonist replies that it is a temporary safe area, so there will be no problems. For now, it is better to conserve stamina when making a dungeon raid. Yoo-hyun complains about the difficult words that the protagonist uses. Kang tells the King of the Fist that it may also be his younger sister and asks what he should call him. Yoo-hyun replies that he can call it whatever he wants. At first, the protagonist thought he wouldn't get used to being called Appa. Yoo-hyun thought he would get the same nickname, but in fact the girl said she was going to call him Lord Yoo-hyun. The King of the Fist was a little sad with that nickname, but soon changes the subject and asks if that crystal is difficult to pass. Kim replies that the clear crystal is the last challenge of the dungeon, and so there may be some kind of trap, so it's good to prepare, plus there's a problem they need solved before. At that moment, the other group enters the same path as the protagonist. The system notifies the other players of the entry. The safe zone disappears because the number of players is greater than 5. Kim gets up and asks the other 2 to get ready. Seo approaches and asks if they haven't finished that path yet. The guy confesses that he thought it would be quick since they seemed so confident. Seo's aura is noticeable from meters away, and he says that he is disappointed with the group. Kim takes the sword and replies that he was waiting. He knew that the guy would do something like that. Seo also takes the sword and says that he is pathetic. In the next moment, the 2 face each other. Kim blocks the enemy's blade. Seo says that he should have been humble. Now his end will not be so generous. The protagonist asks if the guy really thinks he can't touch him. Seo gets more excited and tries to break through Kim's block, but it is in vain. He complains that the protagonist defends himself and does not attack. The protagonist makes a swing with the sword. It is at this moment that Seo takes advantage of the opening to hit his hand. Red liquid begins to drip into the samurai-terrorist's hand. Kang and Yuhyun scream in concern. Suddenly, they are surrounded by Seo's group. Yuhyun is advised to worry about himself. Suddenly, the guy tries to hit him with the sword. Yuhyun dodges and pulls Kang back. The guy praises his perception and agility, but says that all the people he's ever fought couldn't stand 5 minutes of fighting. The two opponents ask Yuhyun to hand over the girl. Meanwhile, the protagonist focuses on the target. Seo says that they seem to be on the same level when it comes to hunting monsters. But Kim looks like an asshole when he has to fight another player. The system notifies him that the Whispering Demon was amused by the insults that the protagonist received. Kim replies that he actually has a very useful trait against the players. Unlike Seo, who can't even use the shadow ambush, the guy feels offended. He takes the dagger and says that it's better to listen to this because now he can murder him without a burden on his conscience. Kim takes a thermos in his hand and asks if their goal is to take Kang. Seo replies that everyone would come out alive if he had delivered the girl before, but now all he wants is to finish the protagonist. At that moment, the guy shoots with the knife in hand and aiming at the opponent's head. Kim just bends down and uses the thermos against Seo's chest. The guy falls to the ground spitting red liquid. Everyone looks incredulously at the scene. The protagonist pulls out his sword and says that everything that will happen from now on is the result of his actions. The scene changes to an hour before everything happens. Seo's group has just entered the second path, and the boy in the arc asks if he is sure he will enter. Seo replies that he will finish that group and get the child. The goal is to wait for them to finish the first path, but if it takes too long, he will invade and start a duel. It shouldn't be a problem because he thinks the protagonist and his group will be very tired. The guy in the hood thinks Kim is skilled, but Seo disagrees because he fought very badly against those yaks. The real danger is the King of the Fist, so he orders the team to attack Yuhyun while he is going to attack the protagonist. The scene returns to the current moment. Seo manages to get up and realizes that Kim's status has changed. Now his fighting style seems much superior. Meanwhile, Yuhyun faces two opponents. The first tries to attack him with the sword stealthily, but Kang blocks the attack with the platinum shield. Surprising the other two, she yells at the King of the Fist to act soon and he agrees. Then he uses the power of the fist skill and hits Byung in the chest. The opponent is thrown away and the guy in the hood says he doesn't have time to worry about that guy, so he gives the order for the archer to shoot the protagonist. The man obeys and sends an arrow. Kim soon feels the trajectory of the attacks and blocks the arrow with the blade of the sword. Seo can't believe what he sees and the archer is surprised. It turns out that the protagonist already knew the Jang archer. He is the main member when it comes to surprise attack, but he still needs the others to protect himself. At that moment, Yuhyun appears behind the archer, and he turns scared. The King of the Fist refers to him as scum. The archer starts yelling at him not to get close and asks Seo for help. Meanwhile, Byung remains on the ground after the attack he suffered from Yuhyun. Seo looks at the defeated man and asks how things could end like this. He was sure that his group would win, but now the guy he thought would have at most level 15 showed that he really was skilled. Seo thinks that at this moment the protagonist can even surpass Yuhyun. He takes a deep breath, telling himself that he must calm down. After all, Kim still doesn't know about his abilities. Maybe this is a perfect time to test them. If he feels confident when suddenly the protagonist opens the thermos and throws water on him. The guy looks incredulous, trying to understand what this attack is. He starts asking if Kim is mocking him. The protagonist calmly replies no and advises him to look around. Suddenly the wall breaks and a bee comes out of it. At that moment, everyone is surprised by a swarm of bees. Seo's allies try to destroy the monsters. Byung finally regains consciousness after the blow he took. At the same moment, he is attacked by the giant bee. Seo is surrounded by the monsters. This happened because there was honey in that water that the protagonist threw at him. The attack of the honeybees was an event that the boy already expected because of his past life. These little monsters are very difficult to deal with. When they are alone, their levels are not high, but usually they only walk in groups. If there is no fire mage in the group, it is better to avoid them. There is only one strategy to pass unscathed from this monster. Kim yells for his allies to lie down on the ground. Kang and Yuhyun obey immediately. The bees do not recognize low targets as a threat. They attack Seo, who is still standing. The agony of the venom of a single bee is an immeasurable pain. Seo has been covered by an entire group. The protagonist just looks. Some time later, the monsters leave. Kim checks the state of Seo. In the end, this was the result of what the player tried to do to other people. It is only the consequence of his actions. The system recognizes that a player passed away during the cleaning of the dungeon. Thanks to this, the protagonist forcibly awakened the skill eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. This skill is activated when the user receives a predictable attack. If it remains passive after receiving an attack, all buffs will have an effect as debuffs. The protagonist is surprised to gain one more innate skill. He already has the Eye of Perception, so he didn't imagine that he could gain another. The downside of the eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth is that this skill requires a mandatory counterattack. It was a relatively common skill in the past. In fact, it was one of the most famous. Suddenly the protagonist has a flashback to the past, but Yuyan interrupts his thoughts and says that he shouldn't blame himself for what happened. This is the fate of bad people. Kim looks back and notices the worried look of the two. They think that the protagonist is sad about the passing of that damn group. Kim replies that it's okay. He knows that in the end it would be them or the CU group. That's why he doesn't regret it. It's better to be the killer than the victim. The system notifies you that the lady on the scale understands your feelings. The protagonist notes that Kang and Yuyan's status are one of trust and respect. He is happy with the good emotions. He was probably the most restless of the group during the fight. After resolving the situation, it was time to finish the dungeon. Kim gets close to the crystal and a purple light breaks from the item. The system says that the Soul Station crystal does not receive intruders. The Eye of Perception notifies the danger ahead. Players are pushed back and the protagonist asks his allies to step aside. Kang asks what he is going to do. Kim replies that he has to face it, but she shouldn't worry. The protagonist calls the inventory and uses the glove to catch the bee's stinger, then covers his face against the crystal gas. Kim specially chose Mandra's gloves as a reward because of his resistance to poisons. Even if it is weak, it is of great help. Now he needs to destroy that crystal before the poison spreads too much. The smoke starts to get denser, and the protagonist loses his sense of direction. He can't see anything ahead. The system warns that the poison in the crystal is consuming his body. The protagonist reaches the limit and can no longer hold his breath. He looks around and no longer finds the crystal. Kim gets close enough and realizes that it is in front of him, so he uses the bee stinger against the item. Meanwhile, Yuyan notices the smoke getting worse and says that he does not understand why Kim is so close to that thing. The protagonist uses his own hands to neutralize the poison. The light begins to diminish, and a few minutes later the poison runs out. Kim breathes a sigh of relief. Yuyan notices the bruises on the protagonist's body. The crystal has finally been acquired. This means that the dungeon is almost finished. The Whispering Demon was not happy with this ending. The protagonist drinks the healing potion and Yuyan asks how he did it. Kim replies that he only used the bee's stinger to neutralize the venom. Yuyan questions how he knew it was going to work. The protagonist says he saw something about it in the item's description. The King of the Fist is shocked by his intelligence. In fact, the protagonist copied the strategy created by the great explorer named Jackson. Yuyan and Kang are amazed. The protagonist says that they need to complete the other path yet. The group is watched by Senya. Kim's behavior is very suspicious for her. The administrator remembers that he didn't use the bees from the attack event just to get rid of CO. He did it because he wanted to collect the stinger and use it as neutralization. The strategy was so clean that Senya doesn't even have to waste time explaining it on the stream. The Guardians already get it. The protagonist enters the second forked path and does the same with the crystal. The Soul Station dungeon has finally been finished. Senya appears and says she will proceed with the rewards. Kim assumes that there must be something special for her to do it personally. Senya confirms. A status bonus point will be distributed to the party members who finish the dungeon. Kim will be able to collect an item for his strategy. The protagonist looks at the options in front of him. Gold would be a great option if he could turn it into money. It's almost 4 kg of gold. Kim is thoughtful because it's very tempting, but he reminds that for now, the rights of the players are not yet protected. This means that he will have to leave a part to pay the tax. In the past, the gold was seized as an excuse from the police that an item from another world was dangerous. Kim says that it is completely unfair, but these are the laws of the initial stage. Unfortunately, there is no way to turn this gold into money without having to pay the government, so he chooses the Type 8 recovery elixir as a reward. The Guardians do not understand his choice. The system announces that the dungeon will be sealed. Days later, Kim and her sister travel on the bus. He asks her what she thinks about moving house. Hayoung asks if he got rich out of nowhere. The protagonist replies that he saved a little and saved about 100 million. His sister angrily asks if he drank. Kim understands why she doesn't believe him. 100 million is an amount of money that his family has never seen in his life. But there is a reason for him to get this money. That Type 8 elixir that the protagonist chose as a reward was very effective against a specific disease. In the original timeline, it was Seo who got this elixir and sold it to a very rich man who had a disease. The elixir was able to cure him. In return, Seo received 1 billion won, or protagonist thought he could do the same and sought out the buyer. The exchange was a success, and Kim managed to create a connection with a billionaire of extreme influence. At that moment, Hayoung looks surprised at the news that appeared on her phone. Kim asks what she saw, and the girl shows the picture of CEO Song Kyung. Hayoung is impressed because this guy had lost all his hair. She even says that the wig looks too realistic. Kim laughs at her. He personally witnessed the CEO's hair grow after taking the elixir. The disease Kyung had was baldness. Basically, that elixir was used to grow hair. CEO Kyung saw potential in it, so Kim received 100,000 in cash and an apartment. In addition, Kyung agreed to help with the necessary procedures for Kang's adoption. The girl lost her family during the tutorial and had nowhere to stay. Then the protagonist's mother said she wanted Kang to live with them. Kim believes that the girl will be happy with the idea. He tells Hayoung that he actually bought a house and now his family will live in a more comfortable place. The girl still doesn't believe it. Suddenly, while they are talking, a portal appears in the middle of the city. The protagonist doesn't realize it at first and keeps saying that he intends to take them to dinner today. Meanwhile, the girl is paralyzed in front of the portal. Kim finally realizes that something is wrong and looks at the crack. He is surprised because it hasn't been long since the Seoul Station dungeon opened. The boy didn't expect another rift to appear so fast. He also recognizes the girl who is standing in front of the portal. That is Shin Yeon-seo. Kim quickly presses the button and the driver stops. He warns Hayoung that he will get off right here. The sister tries to say that it is far for him to walk. From what the protagonist remembers, there is only one portal that appeared in the Hongjiedong area in the past life. It was known as the first dungeon that the Sword Empress cleared. The Sword Empress is Shin Yeon-seo, and she became famous as the first strongest PEF player who appeared. The protagonist approaches and she looks surprised, asking who he is. Kim replies that he is also a player and can see the portal. He is surprised because when he met the Sword Empress in the past life, she looked extremely threatening, but now she only looks like an ordinary girl. Shin looks at him with a smile on his face and is happy to find another player. Kim takes the opportunity to look at her statuses, then warns that if the dungeon is not finished in time, the monsters will start to leave. Shin replies that he heard this from the intermediate administrator. This has not happened yet, because all the dungeons that have appeared have been cleared. The protagonist adds that he has heard that players who clear dungeons can accept the existence of dungeon breaks. If this happens, the monsters will be released. Shin heard of a player with the title of tutorial finisher and assumes that he was the one who cleared the dungeon at Seoul Station. The truth is that so far no dungeon has broken, because the protagonist used his knowledge to finish before everyone else. But in the past life there have been several breaks. Several players have passed away in the process. For now the protagonist can cope, but in a while there will be so many portals that he won't be able to clean it himself. Shin replies that he is sure that the tutorial finisher can clear this portal, but she believes that it is not enough. The protagonist finds it funny. In the past life, Shin surpassed Yoohyun and Peep. Kim gives her reassurance saying that they can form a group. The girl asks what his level is, and the protagonist replies that it is 19. Shin replies that he is also at level 19 and confesses that he thought he was the only one. She sends an invitation to Kim, and now they are part of the same group. At that moment, the girl calls him Appa. The protagonist is incredulous and replies that he is 20 years old. The girl is surprised because she thought he was older, but they both have the same age. Kim mentally says that he is 30 years old, but that body is still 20. Shin hits his arm and says that they will come out alive. They both enter the portal of light. The protagonist did not think he would enter this portal so soon, but he could not miss the chance to visit the portal that the Empress of the Sword finished by herself after the tutorial. On the other hand, Hayoung got off the bus looking for the protagonist. She didn't see him and couldn't even see the portal. The scene changes into the rift. Kim thinks it shouldn't be so difficult because the Empress of the Sword finished this place by herself. The system warns that the monsters appeared. This time the monsters were level 20 rabbits. Shin takes the sword and says that these things are so big that they look like bosses. The protagonist thinks that these rabbits are not so powerful. The biggest feature is that as soon as they judge a target as a threat, they run away at full speed. Kim says that the best thing to do is to finish them all off with a single hit, then asks if she can do that. The girl replies that she has the perfect skill for it. The protagonist was able to see her single hit skill. Shin rushes to the attack. The blow is very fast and the system warns that the monster has been destroyed. Kim admires the skill of the future Sword Empress. In addition, he also notices that her behavior changes when she enters combat. At first, the protagonist was surprised because she looked like just an ordinary college girl, but now Shin has taken on the personality of a battle-obsessed woman that he remembered. The protagonist also helps by eliminating some rabbits. These monsters give a little work because of the speed, but the defensive attack is very low. The girl looks carefully at the protagonist and then asks if he has come here before. Kim replies no. She tries to argue, saying that he eliminates these rabbits with a lot of falsehood, but the protagonist remembers that she eliminated several with just one hit. The girl has nothing to answer. She asks her name and Kim introduces herself. The girl confesses that she wanted to ask something. She realized that the protagonist seemed to know a lot about dungeon, and now that she saw him eliminating these rabbits, she was in doubt. So she asks how he has so much knowledge. Kim acquired a lot of knowledge about this subject in the past life, but he only answers that he learned it during his studies. Shin does not believe it. It seems that the Guardians liked his answer. Suddenly more rabbits appear and the protagonist decides to talk after he clears this place. He is particularly interested in an item that can fall and be of great help to players between levels 30 and 40. Kim decides to hunt until he falls out of one of these rabbits. Senya watches carefully. Suddenly a voice says that this player is very interesting and asks affectionately if Sinya is transmitting him. This is Shin's intermediate administrator. Her name is Ro. She suggests looking at the protagonist's statuses, because she is sure that no player should follow Shin's level. Ro tries to access the statuses and is denied access. Senya says that the boy modified access to his personal information and even removed his name from the player's ranking board. Ro is shocked and asks if she told him about access. No administrator should have told that. Senya replies that she didn't tell anything and didn't violate the commandments. Ro finds it scary that he is making use of the system and says that someone like that is very dangerous. She can't hide the fact that transmitting it must give a lot of money and asks permission to do it when Senya is not there. But the administrator replies that this is not possible because she has already made a contract with him. Ro shouts an administrator can only do this 3 times and asks what she will do if the protagonist fails. Kim continues fighting while the women talk. At that moment, one of the rabbits drops an item that catches the boy's attention. It is an iron sword created by a high-level blacksmith. It has excellent durability and attack power. The protagonist gives the sword to the girl. He says that she can use it if the sword is better than the current one. Shin thanks her and says that in exchange he will give the next item that falls. The truth is that the protagonist only gave that sword because it was not what he was looking for. Kim clearly remembers what will happen in the next 10 years and has a goal. He needs to retrieve an item. The protagonist focuses on eliminating those rabbits. Suddenly a golden item falls and he immediately picks it up. It is a ring of Legolas, an item created by Topaz's refinement that holds a mysterious power, an HP absorption ring. At that moment, the completion crystal appears. This happens when they eliminate enough rabbits. But the protagonist doesn't think about stopping now. He wants to stock up on as many rings as possible. Kim keeps attacking while saying that she still needs 9 rings for the other fingers. Shin didn't expect to find another player who fought at the same speed as her. For some reason, the girl can't help but feel like this guy has been here before, mainly because of its accurate information. A few hours later, the system warns that the rabbits have run out. Shin looks for the exit. The protagonist asks her to follow him. The girl walks behind him and says that it is very dark. Suddenly, a noise echoes. The system warns that the completion crystal has been forcibly destroyed. Kim is happy. Unlike dungeons, portals cannot be accessed again after being closed. In all, he managed to gather 8 HP absorption rings. It seems that the Guardians did not like his attitude very much and stopped watching the broadcast. The protagonist understands that it can be boring to watch someone hunting for hours, but thought they would understand the reason for collecting the rings. At that moment, the exit appears. The protagonist thinks about what excuse he will use when he meets Hayoung. The two leave the portal and Shin is shocked when she realizes that he appeared in the same place they entered, but for some reason there is no passerby on the street. Suddenly a voice speaks to them. Ro thanks the Guardians for visiting her channel. The Guardian called True Master asked for a pep zone, and she decided she was going to do it. The protagonist recognizes the administrator who transmits Shin. Ro announces that the competitors of the Peep Zone is the genius of fencing and a player without identity with a lot of intuition. She asks the Guardians who they think they will win. The duel will take place in a pep zone, and the damage will be disregarded in the end. This means that it is impossible for there to be a fatal damage. The protagonist remembers that she heard of Roa in the past as one of the best administrators. She is skilled in talking to the Guardians, completely the opposite of Sinya, who at the moment is without any communication skills. Shin asks if they will really get out of the arena alive. The protagonist replies that even in the worst-case scenario, she will remain alive. Any wound will be healed when the PEF ends. He confesses that he didn't think he would participate in a peep since he doesn't have any Guardians by his side. The Guardians are surprised by this statement. Ro is also shocked because Sinya should have explained to the protagonist about the selection of Guardians, but it seems that so far she has not explained anything to her player. Ro decides that she will not tell because it is not her problem. She warns that the PvP is going to start. Kim says that she has a question to ask before. Ro is ready to listen. The protagonist wants to talk to the Guardian who made the request for the peep. He accuses the True Master of being in favor of betrayal. After all, he is promoting a fight between two people who trusted each other to complete the portal. The protagonist knew this Guardian called True Master because he was very famous in his past life. He was as famous as Shin's Guardian. The True Master has the same personality as the brave Lion King. Both want battles between players. The difference is that the True Master hates betrayal. This is the reason for the protagonist's response. At that moment, the True Master gives a temporary ability for Kim. Now he will be able to use the same unique move as Shin within the PEF field. Even so, the protagonist is not sure if he can beat Shin. He assumes that the girl's Guardian thinks he is weak. Kim tells Shin that he now has the same ability as her. He did not think he would battle the person who just helped him clear the portal. But it seems that the Guardian is curious to know who will win. Shin replies that he is too. She wants to see who of them will be victorious. He helped her with the sword a few hours ago, so she could see that they both had the same speed in the attack. This aroused her curiosity. Shin adds that she feels he knows everything, so she is eager to fight him. The protagonist agrees with the duel. The Guardians gather on the broadcast. Shin initiates the attack. Kim blocks and activates the Eye of Perception. He follows the trajectory of the movements and knows that the next attack will come from above to the side. In fact, this was all a bluff. Shin aimed at the neck, but Kim also blocked. Ro is open-mouthed at the level of the competitors. The Eye of Perception was the most incredible innate ability that the protagonist could achieve. It is thanks to her that he can perceive the opponent's movements in advance, but he does not know how to counterattack. Kim has few techniques with swordsmanship. In this case, there is only one thing to do. Shin continues to advance and says that he realized that he is not good with the sword. This is good because now she is going to fight seriously. The protagonist asks, surprised if she wasn't fighting seriously. The girl replies that she held on. Even if they are not eliminated, there will still be pain like any cut. Kim realizes that the girl managed to read the limit of his ability. So the only way out he has now is to find out the exact time she will use the single blow. At that moment, Shin swings the sword. Kim lets out an opening and gets a cut in the belly. All this was part of his plan. He knew the girl would feel confident enough to try to stab. The next moment, Shin pushes the blade forward, but Kim uses speed to get out of her field of vision. She looks back scared and the protagonist counterattacks by pushing the sword towards her. Shin falls to the ground and notices the blade in front of her face. The protagonist asks if she won and she says yes. The system notifies her that Shin has acknowledged defeat. Kim was the winner of the first PvP zone and received the title of first opponent. The title holds a considerable advantage on high ground against players. He also gained the light step skill, an ability that allows him to jump forward before the opponent notices, a formidable technique that does not require mana. In the past, it was Shin who gained this skill. The girl soon interrupts his thoughts and asks if he won't be happy. Because he won the prize, she starts saying that she was very excited and will even call her mother to tell her what happened. The protagonist feels that he is stealing the prize from the Empress of the Sword. It's a bad feeling, even if it wasn't intentional. 4 Guardians have shown interest in the protagonist. He believes it is because he now knows about the selection of Guardians. The brave Lion King makes it clear that he still hates him. The peep zone is deactivated, and they return to the city. The protagonist realizes that his wound has been healed. Suddenly, Shin asks for his phone number and he asks why. The girl replies that she wants to keep in touch because she liked him. Kim is a little embarrassed. He starts typing the number on the girl's phone when suddenly the Eye of Perception detects a danger. It is very fast and the protagonist realizes that he will not be able to swerve. The next moment, his sister slaps him with all his strength on the back. Hyung curses him by all names and asks how he could go around without telling anything. She searched for hours worried. Shin observes the family quarrel. A few hours later, the protagonist returns home. He is happy that now the family will be able to live in a better place. His mother and sister will not. They believed him until he delivered the documents of the new house. Now the protagonist's only concern is that this life is progressing too fast. In the past life, the cataclysm began worldwide on May 11th, 2018. More than 20 million people passed away around the world due to the tutorial fields that appeared. The world news gave the name of new technology to the items that players brought from the dungeon. So far, everything is according to the notes that the protagonist made. If it continues like this, in 3 days, dungeons and portals will appear all over the country. Kim knows that it is impossible for one person to solve everything. In the end, he is just an ordinary player with notes from the future. Kim look at the note he has for June 16th, 2018, and it reads that 6 people will be murdered on the mountain route. The killer is unknown. The protagonist closes the notebook and says that he knows what he will do today. The scene changes to the Iwang Mountain. Kang gets tired of walking so much and asks what they came here to do. The protagonist replies that they came to hunt some monsters. Kang thinks it's strange because any ordinary person could end up with those slimes. Kim says she's right and reveals that they are looking for the lycanthrope. Kang widens his eyes. Meanwhile, in some part of the mountain, 3 women walk and talk about the events that happened in Jongno. They fear that something like this will happen in other provinces. The woman in the yellow clothes says that she just saw another monster. She even thinks about capturing the slime and selling it, but is advised to let it go because she is not a player. The woman agrees that she has no ability to deal with this new technology. Suddenly, they hear a noise and stop. One of the women says that she felt that something jumped on top of them. The protagonist lands on the ground and runs towards the women. He is sure that they are part of those 3 people who were murdered on the mountain. The women get scared and try to call the police. The protagonist asks for silence before they wake up that being. The alert is no use because the women are afraid of Kim and continue screaming. At that moment, the lycanthrope is woken up. They all run in fear, but the one in yellow clothes ends up falling on the way. Kim pulls her close to a rock. He followed the bloodthirsty feeling to find the lycanthrope. The problem is that this feeling is emanating from another source as well. It seems that there is something more powerful than the lycanthrope. At that moment, the wolf jumps on top of him. Kim leaves the sword ready. Suddenly, the bloodthirsty aura exudes from the back of the lycanthrope and the protagonist says that he finally found it. He passes by the wolf and encounters a white-haired creature. Kim uses the light step skill and the title of Excellent Hunter. The fusion of the two makes the boy go unnoticed. Thanks to this, he hits the enemy in the belly. The system presents the monster as a six-tailed fox. The protagonist did not expect to find something like this outside the dungeon. At that moment, the fox runs away. Kim is a little worried because the six-tailed foxes are difficult monsters that fall into the category of the spirit type. They use stealth and ambushes with the help of spirit magic. The protagonist does not understand why this fox appeared now. Meanwhile, the lycanthrope takes the opportunity to hurt someone else. This time, Kang intends to deal with the wolf without the help of the protagonist. The girl can't help but feel fear. Suddenly, the wolf howls, releasing a pressure on the opponent's body. Last time, Kang had to crawl because of the effect, but now it's different. The system notifies that the anomaly didn't cause any effect on his body. The lycanthrope soon hits the platinum shield. Kang holds the wolf's arm and thinks about what the protagonist would do if he were in his place. Suddenly, the monster uses the other arm to hit her. Kim arrives in time and plunges his sword into the monster. Kang takes the opportunity to use his punch. The lycanthrope is thrown and falls to the ground without vital signs. The protagonist feels that it was easier to deal with this thing. The monster would have been eliminated quickly if it wasn't for the six-tailed fox. The women are still in shock for what happened. The person who had his arm amputated didn't resist. In the past, the government was successful in eliminating the lycanthrope, but they didn't find out that the real threat was the six-tailed fox, so they announced that they successfully eliminated the killer. In this life, the protagonist managed to find the real culprit. The fox was hurt, and even if he is skilled, he doesn't go that far. Suddenly, he hears a noise. That woman in yellow clothes who was dragged by the fox screams for help. The protagonist runs towards the voice. He remembers too late that the fox needs human flesh to regenerate the wound he just received. Kim arrives at the last second, and the monster jumps back. The woman who was fleeing was wounded in the stomach by the fox. The protagonist looks at the monster in front and realizes that it is a doppelganger. If it were the real one, this woman would not be alive. Kim gets angry, wondering where the real body is. The Eye of Perception is activated, and it doesn't take long to discover the location of the six-tailed fox. The protagonist uses the ability to his advantage and understands that the monster is trying to camouflage himself, but to capture the real body, he has to pretend he doesn't know about the clone. The protagonist then asks Kang to use the ability to taunt. The girl obeys and the clone does not suffer the effects. The girl wonders what is wrong. Kim tells her not to stop until she gets his attention. Kang continues to provoke the beast and succeeds. She faces the clone's mouth. From the beginning, the protagonist realized that this clone was a duplicate of the real body. The statistics were divided between the two bodies, so eliminating the clone was not an option. The real body would take the opportunity to escape. Kim buys a dagger in the inventory. Her perception indicates the path of the true body, and the protagonist throws a dagger with all his strength. The action aroused the emotions of the guardians. The real fox looks at the dagger and the clone disappears. Kang asks what the protagonist did and remembers that he heard a scream as if someone had been hit. Kim hurried to finish off the six-tailed fox. The system notifies the guardian surprise and delivers a new item. Kim receives a tail and is happy because he will be able to use it in the dungeon that will appear later. The system congratulates him on reaching level 26. At that moment, a support helicopter begins to fly over the forest. The protagonist realizes that someone managed to call the police and says that he needs to get out of here as soon as possible. Senia appears and asks her level. The protagonist replies that she can scan and find out for herself. The administrator does this, and he notices her wings trembling. Suddenly, he is informed that he received a pause. Senia says it was a gift from the Lady of the Scale. There are some warnings that the Guardians want him to see. At that moment, several interfaces appear in front of the protagonist. For some reason, the Guardian who hates him the most sent good things to him and became friendly. Kim does not understand what happened to the brave Lion King. The next gift is from the Lady of the Scales and the Whispering Demon. Although they have the different behavior, they both gave the Sword of Eden, which is a rarely acquired item, and the Devil Fruit, a consumable that increases the player's growth in exchange for changing their alignment with evil, finally has an attractive offer from the True Master. He wants to pass the Celestial Demonic Art to the protagonist. Kim doesn't understand why he would receive something like this. He takes a look at other warnings and realizes that the Watcher did nothing but observe. The protagonist also received other insignificant proposals, probably because the Guardians want to be chosen when he reaches level 30. They want to show that they can afford gifts like these. This explains why Senia is shaking. She wanted to inform about her first breakthrough when she reached level 25. The protagonist assumes that the Guardians are pressuring Senia to know what level he is at. Unfortunately, the administrator can't talk normally. She just keeps trembling all the time. Kim calls Senia and asks if she's in a difficult situation because of the announcement just now. The girl plays dumb, but the protagonist says she won't be able to work with the Guardians if it continues like this. The administrator gets angry and asks him what he wants. Kim asks for 3,000 coins. The girl suggests 2,000. But the protagonist says that she is not in a position to negotiate. If she continues in this way, she will have to deal with the guardians alone. Senya offers 2,700 coins. The protagonist threatens to leave. After much discussion, the girl agrees to send 3,000 coins. Kim asks for the contract to sign. A little later, Kim and Kang are in the car on their way home. The protagonist receives a call and is surprised. Shin says that she read the article about the attack on the mountain. She knows that he was the one who saved her mother. So she thanks him and says that she will do everything he wants. The protagonist wonders if she is aware of the danger of these words. He says he was going to call her because he wants to make a wish. Shin gets anxious. The protagonist invites her on a trip and she asks the destination, but he only replies that it is a little far. The next day, the protagonist gathers all his friends and warns that he wants to travel with them tomorrow to Japan, adding that he needs help to clear the portal that will appear in Osaka. Shin asks if it is a portal like the one they entered the other day. Kim replies yes, but there is no way to know what kind of thing will be inside. In addition, portals can also break like dungeons, and people will be injured. The protagonist explains that the portal can open so fast that he doesn't know if he will be able to finish. If that happens, the monsters will come out and attack people. What the boy plans to do is reduce the damage just like he did on the mountain. Kim makes it clear that this is just an invitation they can refuse, but if they decide to go, he will bear all the costs and the ticket. It is only necessary that they take their passport and clothes to the airport tomorrow. Shin says that she thought she would be invited for a trip. She takes a deep breath and asks how he knows about the portal. Kim lies, saying that he can see the future through dreams. Shin doesn't take it seriously, but the protagonist says it's true. This world is going crazy and many things can happen, even premonition. He says that it's okay if the group doesn't believe it, and adds that he will travel even if he is alone. Shin thinks for a while and decides that he will accompany him. She says that she will face it as a date. Yuian says that she will not let her brother go alone. Kang asks what should she do. The protagonist replies that he will take care of all the documents if she wants to go, but the girl should not feel pressured. Kang shouts that he wants to go. The protagonist is happy, because he thought that one of them would refuse.